I'm writing this on Saturday, February 2022. It's currently 2 a.m., and after pacing around my living room contemplating what to do, I've decided to write down what happened to me and my child, in hopes of some sort of explanation. I'm seriously doubting my own mind. My kid, her name's Alicia, is barely 8 years old, and she loves horror, just as much as her mother. Whenever something manages to frighten her, or fill her with dread, she always gives off the most beautiful laugh. I hate horror, but that laugh makes it worth it. Me and Alicia have our own little game. We call it night walks, and it's just like it sounds. In the middle of night, we go into the forest close to our home, and walk around there for some time, and then go back. It's perfect, because everything's so much more scary for her at night. The smallest of noises or sounds makes her jump, and then she giggles. One time, lightning struck, making her jump and scream. I had to carry her all the way home. The next day, she was having a blast telling her mother all about it, of course, leaving out the crying part. Sometimes, we pass other people who are taking their dogs out for a walk. She likes staring at their dark figures growing larger in the night as they approach us. Sometimes bushes rustle, and that always gets a shriek. The reason I much prefer doing this over watching a horror movie is simple. I don't really have the fear of darkness or night. I'm a large, hairy, ugly man. When I'm out at night, I always think of myself as the potential monster everyone has to be afraid of. Lately, I feel that we've done this too much because nothing seems to get a response out of her. It's almost as if she's grown more comfortable in the black of darkness than under daylight, because she knows nothing bad will happen with her father there. We were supposed to do it on Friday, but I'd been too tired, and I promised her we'd go on Saturday instead. I'd forgotten about it, and late at night, way past her bedtime, she asked me for a night walk. Truth be told, I didn't want to do it, but I'd promised, and she had no problem pointing that out. We reached the forest. The large, bark trees blocked out the light coming from the moon, making the forest look a lot darker than it actually was. The path turned from concrete into dirt, and there were a few lights that had been put up, but they were weak, and some of them broken and not functioning. Alicia was skittish by the time we got there, and she basically ran into there. Usually this would be fine, but it was too late. And the stillness and silence of it all got to me, so I ran after her, urging her to calm down. She walked surrounded by darkness, without a care in the world. She looked bored from the whole thing, whilst I was more skittish than I usually was. My eyes wouldn't stop jumping around the forest, searching for something, but I didn't know what. Alicia's eyes focused on something, and I saw that she'd spotted a smaller trail, going deeper into the forest. She turned around and asked me if I could take that path. I was about to say no, when she widened her eyes, just like a puppy, and I couldn't help it. We walked off the path we usually took. Only the moonlight lit up the path, but the trees blocked it at most points, only leaving faint splotches on the ground. That was enough to make our way through though. Suddenly, Alicia clenched my hand. I guess the darkness had finally gotten to her. That pleased me more than it should have. Honestly, it had gotten to me. I knew it had, because I felt the strong urge of being watched. This is paranoia, I kept repeating to myself. Alicia started giggling. She'd suddenly stop and gasp, and then start giggling again. The giggles grew, slowly louder, until she was laughing at the top of her lungs like a madman, with wide eyes and shaking hands. Honestly, I found the scene a bit disgruntling, but she seemed to be enjoying herself. "What's so scary?" I asked.
Nothing, but he's so funny.
The word hit up against my ears like spikes. My stomach clenched, and I furrowed my eyes. What exactly was she talking about? I looked, really inspected the area around me, wondering just who it was she spoke about, but I couldn't spot him. This had to be a joke, I concluded. Really? What's he been saying? I said, trying to play along.
He's been saying the scariest things.
Like what?
How he'll rip out my tongue, and shove it down my eyeballs, and how good my legs are going to taste down his throat, and how his tongue is going to lick my face like a dog, and how he'll kill you too, in front of me. Really scary, honestly.
She clenched my hand. I stared at her bewildered. She must have come up with that herself, or was there really somebody talking to her? Could it be one of her imaginary friends? One that embodied all the horror she'd watched. She'd made a point of losing them last year, but maybe she'd kept one of them. Otherwise, there was something here. We're going home, I said to her, breaking her concentration with a point in the darkness, as if she was holding eye contact.
He's right there.
She pointed into the darkness. I looked right there, squinted my eyes, but I couldn't see anything.
He's got a really big smile.
The pit in my stomach grew. I grabbed her hand and we started walking back the way we came from. Alicia seemed a bit angry at this, but her jerking and pulling is nothing to my grip. That fact scared me. After a while, she calms down.
He says you smell nice. Wait, one more time. Like Amanita. He says he wants to tickle me.
That comment turned my fear into rage. I stopped and turned around, face red. That's enough. Tell your friend to come out. She turns and looks at the darkness.
Can you please come out?
I look at the spot she's looking at, fully expecting nothing to happen, and for her to drop the entire gist. My stomach shot up my chest and my jaw clenched. A man, almost my size, with skin as pale as the moon, and dressed in a ripped-up suit, walks towards us, and his hair is completely messed up, and his eyes sparkle in the moon, wide as pebbles, staring right at me, smiling, as if he's seeing an old friend. I pulled Alicia behind me.
Hey. Your daughter has a delightful sense of humor,
he said. I'm warning you, piss off, I said.
Don't be mean to him.
Alicia clenched my hand.
He's a nice guy.
I told you, he wouldn't like me,
he said to Alicia.
People don't get us. How about this, if you take another step away from me, I'll kill you both.
He held a pebble in his hand. He clenched, and when he let go, there was only dust. Alicia giggled.
Come here, Alicia,
he said, wiggling his finger. She tries to walk towards him, but I hold her back. He walked up to us. Every part of me was telling me to run, and every part of me was telling me to stay with Alicia. He got down on his knees, and his face was only inches away from Alicia's. His lips were blood red.
Do you want to see something scary?
He said. Sure. At once, a crack ran from the edges of his mouth out to the end of his cheekbones, and his mouth spread wider and wider. Many different rows of sharp teeth showed, some with bits of flesh and blood still left inside. The mouth grew so wide that it surrounded Alicia's head. She shrieked like she'd never done and passed out. His mouth snapped back into its original form. He laughed, whilst I stood there frozen in shock.
You know, usually I just rustle a bush a bit, or massage her heels. Once, I even got Jack to draw lightning, and oh boy, her reaction was hilarious. You know, we love watching her. She's a blast. Come out, guys.
I looked around, as the most horrifying forms came out. Forms that will fill my nightmares for the rest of my life. I fell down on my back. I thought I was the monster in the night. No way, no way. This didn't make any sense at all. He leaned in close to me.
It'll be hard to top this, but we'll manage. How about this, I'll help you carry her home, and you tell her it was all one big nightmare. Sounds good.